Welcome to another episode on the People Productivity Channel where you can become a better you. You are the product, a better you is a solution. Today, I have on a very interesting guest who's going to share some incredibly important information with you. I think this interview is very timely. It was set up because of the crisis that we're going through and how the world has changed. Kelly Meerbott is a leadership coach, but I know Kelly. Kelly is just so much more than that. She has looked at the human side of trauma and in fact has suffered from it. And what we're going to do today is talk about the world, how this is going to affect people emotionally, mentally. It's going to affect their health. Some people will ride it out and be basically unharmed. Other people will be found in the depths of depression or even suicide. So this is important. You know, you've gone through an entire life of schooling, education, work. And, you know, one very important thing was left out. All the things you need to know about the human side of life, whether it's how to work well with others, whether it's, you know, what to do to stay fit, what is nutrition, how to eat, you know, how to cope with difficult situations, all of the life skills that are just so vital, you end up having to pick up on your own. So this is a really, really important episode. And if you know people who are suffering and you happen to like this, please share it because that's what makes the world go round. We're all here to make the place a little bit better. So Kelly, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, and thank you so much, Frank. I just love People Productive and you and Dan and the team and your strategic partners and what you're doing to heal the collective consciousness. As you said, I'm Kelly Meerbott. I am a leadership coach.
Mhm.
I find myself to be the catalyst for holistic transformation in humans and their organizations. And I do that by taking a look at what's magnificent about them and just really turning up the volume on all of that, and it's just to me, it's my honor to be able to walk alongside people and say, yep, that's a fire in front of us. No, we're not going around it. I'm going to lock arms with you and walk through it with you and show you that you're fireproof. So
You're amazing.
yeah, it's truly my honor to be here with you, and hopefully we'll be able to serve and offer a little hope to the people out there listening, because we all will get through this, and the
Yeah.
only way to do that is together and through. So,
Yes. And I think, you know, the techniques that you do share on your webinars and some of the great things you do with other people and the amount of things that you've learned on this 22-year journey where you began to look at the human side of healing for yourself and then realize that you had a role as a healer in life. So I really, I love your story. And I mentioned earlier that I thought we'd kick off with just one graph that I
yeah,
think
love that.
tells a lot. So let
Hmm.
me share my screen quickly since we're on Zoom. Here's the US adjusted, the age adjusted US suicide rate, 1907 to 2017. And what's interesting is if you look over here on the right, suicide rates have been rising since hitting a low in the year 2000.
Hmm.
So, you know, after the 2000 crash, the world really began to change. So many people's lives were turned upside down. A lot of the economy was outsourced. People lost their jobs, their professions, their livelihoods. And we could see that this has been going up. And unfortunately, if you go back to the beginning of the chart where we see the blue, and
Hmm.
this is, by the way, a Time Magazine article from June of 2019. I could pull this down. James Ducharme, June 20th, 2019. If you're interested, go feel free to read the article. But look at the Great Depression. Here we see it starting, and we hit a peak,
Yep.
1932, which is what the top of this is, which happened to be the absolute peak unemployment rate, which at the time had 25%. Now, you know, 1 out of every 4 Americans was out of work. There are numbers out there that we could go much, much higher than that. I don't know where the number ends up, but you can only imagine this line on the right and the emotional harm, the financial harm, the damage to relationships, the damage to families. This is going to so far surpass any of the deaths, the number of deaths in terms of damage that is created by this crisis, because this is going to go on for a very long time.
Hmm.
Things don't recover quickly. So with that as a backdrop, how do you think people should cope with this? Because there are going to be a lot of people in all different levels of emotional anxiousness, frustration, fear, depression.
Mhm.
It's going to harm relationships. Let's get into some things they can do to help themselves, Kelly.
Yeah, so I think also it's important for you and I to preface this discussion by we're not trying to scare anybody, but I think it's the value in this discussion is bringing it into your awareness so that it's on your radar and that you start to notice and pay attention and be really mindful of the behaviors that are around you. I mean, I'll tell you a very quick story. I have a colleague who's a member of the C-suite of a very large telecommunication company. It's Fortune 500. She was conducting a Zoom call a couple of weeks ago, and one of the team members had a mental meltdown on the Zoom call in front of his entire team.
Mhm.
And first of all, he was a man. Second
Yep.
of all, he started crying. Third of all, he started lashing out at everybody. I mean,
Yep.
when somebody who's normally stable and that's happening, clearly it's more than just the pressures of the job. So I would say the first thing is to early intervention and prevention is key, right? So that's part of the reason why Frank and I thought it was so important to have this discussion because we
Mhm.
wanted you to look for things like what I just described, or if you notice somebody who is usually an extrovert and they're starting to detach from others, or having a level 1 reaction to a level 10 request. For example, like if your mother is taking care of your kids while you're telecommuting and she asks you to buy groceries and you flip out, like that's not a normal reaction. I would look at things like being aware that people are experiencing the 5 stages of grief,
Yep.
knowing that these are all symptoms that kind of feed into mental health. Look for the anger, the denial, the bargaining, the depression. Look for the anxiety, because even though they may not be experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, they may have some of the symptoms, and these
Mhm.
symptoms masquerade as other things, whether it's burnout or, like I said, anxiety, depression, detachment from others, anger, irritability to a level that is just not even normal. But I'll also tell you, I had a really long conversation with Stephen Klasko, who's the president and CEO of Jefferson University, and he said to me, there's a lot of stress out there. Kelly, we don't need you right now, but we will need you afterwards because there is tons of PTSD. Now, for those of you that aren't in the market,
Mhm.
Jefferson Health Systems is one of the largest health systems in the Northeast, and for him, who is on the front lines with the nurses and the doctors, and they're seeing all of this,
Very telling.
it's very telling. So
Very
again,
telling. Yeah.
not to scare you, but I think if you want to get back to the new normal faster, it's worth taking the time and effort. So I would say, for those organizations that can afford it, hire a coach, hire a psychiatrist, hire a therapist. Um, be open to having these kinds of discussions and shedding light on it, because all that happens if they keep it in the dark is it's going to spread like a virus, pun
Mhm.
intended. You really need to bring to light and make sure that your workspace is sacred and safe for people to be able to talk about these things. So, and hiring a company or using a company like People Productive that can put a metric behind it and show you where the gaps and blind spots are, that's a great start.
Mhm.
It's not a pitch for the company, but they're doing healing work, and if you're able to really kind of get a great 360 of your company and see where the gaps and blind spots are, then you can hire the correct professionals to keep your people positive, productive, and moving forward.
Yeah, and it makes such a difference. And I like your suggestion that they should be on alert.
Yeah,
You might be feeling great, and
right.
you as an individual, might be in a very different situation than someone else. They could have been in a stressful situation going into this for
Yep.
many reasons. But if you know their baseline mood and you see it changing, you should certainly reach out to them.
Yeah.
Talk to them, see what's going on. They may need professional help, or they may just need, a shoulder to cry on. I mean,
Yeah.
that could very well be it.
Yeah.
I think it's super important that people start to think about where this is going. This isn't the end of the world. The world has
Mhm.
been through so many downturns over the centuries, and the reality is the sun does come back out. And I'll be honest with you, I'm with you. I see a really great future out there.
Me too.
I see this. What is happening has accelerated the movement towards a digital economy.
Mhm.
And, the industrial era was really a very, very toxic time for most people, right?
Mhm.
It was, using people as parts.
Yep.
And, they were nothing more than an extension of a machine.
Mhm.
And we called the department that took care of them human resources
Right.
because factories needed resources to do everything, including humans. You
Mhm.
might have coal, fabric, who knows, coming in the front end and people in the middle being some of the resources dealing with it. But
Mhm.
this is that world. We're heading into a world where people are the most important part of every company because they are the means of production.
Right.
And, the innovation, the power, and the things that are going to be available to everybody, 3D printing at a low price, the creators can create stuff. I see a lot happening down the road that I see is just very positive. So this is a time where humans have to pull together and help one another. Like we came out with that freemium remote work diagnostic to help companies. So people need to stick together really and understand what's going on. But let's talk some more. What else do you think people should do?
Well, first of all, to dovetail off, I mean, I've heard you say that in keynote talks, and every time you talked about the industrial era and human resources, it always gives me goosebumps because you and I have been talking for years about
Yeah.
needing empathy and emotional intelligence and passion and drive. And I think the companies that are really going to do well are the ones that are purpose, mission, and values driven and are
Yes.
clear on who they are. I think there's going to be a higher demand for transparency because there's been such a lack of it, and I think that people who are in the workplace are going to demand honesty from their leaders. And when I say transparency, I mean it's okay for you to come from what I like to call the I don't know minds. Like, I don't know everything. So, the approach to that transparency is here's what we know, here's what we don't know. And what it's going to do is bond you because everybody's in this ambiguous state.
Yes.
If you're up there acting like you know everything, you're out of your mind because even Dr.
Yep.
Fauci, who's been mapping this out and has served under 6 presidents, has walked back some of the things he's said. I think that the only constant in this is change. And if we can get our minds around that and just knowing that all we can do is control the present moment and not project into the future or think about the past, we're going to be fine. I definitely see a lot of positivity and possibility. I think that the competencies we're going to need, like I said, are empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, love,
Yeah.
um, tenderness,
Just,
kindness.
just
I
general
mean,
caring and concern for others, as a
right.
human being.
Yeah. I
Just
mean,
check
and,
in on them, even if they're well, showing you're checking in on them, right?
right. I
I mean,
mean,
that matters.
and I've done this with you and Dan. When we open our calls, my questions usually are, how are you doing in general?
Yes.
How are you holding up? How's your family? How's your work situation? I'm interested in you, and I'm a small business owner, and I hunt what I kill, I eat what I kill. I'm an entrepreneur, which is fine, but now's not the time for that. Now's the time to really connect and understand each other and listen. I mean, and when I say listen, listen between the lines. Like, what are people saying? What are they not saying? I mean, remember, 80% of all communication is nonverbal. So again, if you have a team member or you're managing somebody that you're asking them something and they're getting a little shifty or they're acting a little bit, not in line with who they normally are, then take the time, take the effort to find out what's going on with them. Try not to operate from a fear-based mentality because, again, like you said, we had the Great Depression. You and I were alive during 9/11. I mean, do you
Mhm.
remember what it was like then? It was chaotic for
Yeah.
months, but then we ended up coming out of it, and that's gonna happen. But there is a lot of innovation going on, a lot of great innovation going on.
Yeah.
Like, I talked in one of my webinars about LVMH, the parent company to Louis Vuitton and Belvedere, and a lot of really luxury brands. And as soon as this came out, they pivoted. They looked at what they had and said, Okay, we have all the ingredients for hand sanitizer. Let's stop making liquor and we'll do hand sanitizer until this is over and we'll donate it. I mean,
Mhm.
to
It's
me,
fantastic.
innovation, right? But innovation isn't all about creating something brand spanking new. It's about doing something new with something old, which is what
Yeah.
they did. They looked at it, they knew what their purpose was, and they pivoted.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, listen, this is an extreme case of emotional difficulty for for many
Yeah.
individuals. It's a time of extreme financial difficulty for many people and many companies. You know, there's some bridge money available to help people and companies get through this. But I think
Mhm.
they have to look at this differently. They've got to say, you know what? Wow, all of these things are a chance for us to build a better company and a better culture. You know, we had on a guest, Charles Araujo. We'll be publishing that interview probably, you know, in the next couple of days. And, you know, he says, look, think differently. You know, look at this differently. You know, when you go out and you're putting remote work in place, you're not continuing to do what you did before, you know, to try to, you know, let's work the way we did before. We'll just do it online. No, you're reinventing how you do work and you're creating competitive advantage. And when you deal with a situation like this, which is a crisis, companies encounter all different levels of difficulty in crises over time. It doesn't have to be one where it's economic wide. It could be a really competitive assault in your market. You know, so many things happen that cause uncertainty and fear. And
Mhm.
building skills in your company to deal with it, to allow people to, you know, kind of, you know, recalibrate and, you know, get back to work because you really do want to be the ones coming out, you know, in good shape,
Mhm.
maybe not on top, but maybe on top. Who knows? Maybe you can actually turn lemons into lemonade. And
Mhm.
if you build those skills and maintain them as a company, you're now more competitive.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's all how you look at this.
Yeah, I mean, I really am excited about the next chapter to see what people are doing, whether it's reinventing or taking this time, I mean, to really evaluate what's working in my company, what's not working, what's
Yeah.
next, what can we tweak. I think right now expecting 100% productivity from your people is unreasonable, and
Yep.
I think it's cruel. I think if you're hitting like the 75% to 80% mark, you're doing great. But I think this is the time to really step back, take a breath, and reevaluate. And all of those things that you thought were, for instance, revisiting your mission, vision, values, and what your purpose is. Like one of the questions I love to ask companies when I first start working with them is, beyond making money, why is this worth doing? Why do you get out of bed every day? And really drilling down on why you're there, what your why is. This is the time to do that. Take that time, really, ruminate on it.
Well,
And
that's
also,
so motivating for the people, by the way, because
right.
when you pivot and you provide meaning in a different form for the people who work for you, because you know you're not selling liquor, you're selling hand sanitizer.
Right.
I mean, that really does motivate people and pick them up, right? Because
Oh,
humans want to
absolutely.
understand the meaning behind everything they're doing. And, you know, that's a mood lifter. Creating fun, you know,
Yeah.
having some fun to offset some of the stress,
Yeah.
you know, doing something different with the people at the meetings, you know, encouraging some fun because humans need to counteract the stress that's going on in their life. And
Yeah, and getting to know them on a human level. I mean,
yeah,
knowing what their story is, knowing why they do what they do. I mean, one of my clients is a pharmaceutical client, and I love them. And they do they develop drugs for dementia and schizophrenia and depression. And Parkinson's. And the team that I talked to, I said, I asked that question, beyond making money, why is this worth doing? Well, don't you know, 3 out of the 5 women on this team had relatives that had some form of that disease. So basically, indirectly, they're helping their family by doing.
Yeah.
If a crisis
Tremendously
happens and
motivating.
you're
Yeah.
rooted and anchored in that purpose, nothing's going to knock you off your core, and I kind of go back to the word. If you look at the word crisis, the Greek root is to
Hmm.
sift. Think
Never
about
knew that.
that,
Very
right?
interesting. Yeah.
Just so think about, let's go back to the guys who used to mine for gold. They have to sift stuff out, and what gets sifted out? It's all the dirt and all the crap that's worthless. But what are you left with? Gold. Use this time to sift out the crap and the dirt that you don't need, that's weighing your company down, whether it's bureaucracy or politics or siloed leadership. This is the time to change that.
Oh, yeah. Pull it
um,
together.
yeah.
Emerge stronger. I mean, that's really what you want to do.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know about you, and I already probably think I know the answer, Frank, but I feel
Yeah.
like the more people want me to social distance, the more the urge in me is to pull them closer. Like I keep saying to my friends that when I see them, please add an extra 10 minutes on our meeting, because I'm just going to hug you until
Yeah.
we both let go, because I miss that human connection, and I yearn for it, and of course my reaction to this whole thing has been to give as much as I can of myself, whether it's volunteering on a helpline for anxiety and depression, adopting a grandparent. I just signed up for this campaign called NYC COVID Care, which I'll be volunteering 3 to 5 hours of my week to coach the frontline responders in New York, because it's what I can do from here. And that's the thing. You're not helpless. If you have a roof over your head and you're able to shelter at home with your family, that's a privilege. And,
Yeah.
in my mind, do what you can do to give back. This is a time to give back. I mean, if you look online, you see all of these amazing things happening. I just read an article and saw a video that John Bon Jovi showed up in a kindergarten class, and they were working on writing, and he put their writing to music and sang. He knows that's his
So this
gift.
was an online class that he attended.
Yeah, he
Oh,
jumped on
wow.
a Zoom call with all the
That is
kindergartners.
amazing.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. John Krasinski from The Office has started SGN, which is called Some Good News, and he curates all of these experiences online. He threw a prom across the world for all
Wow.
the kids that were missing prom. He took a bunch of nurses from his hometown of Boston and had them throw out the first pitch at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
Granted, the stadium was empty, but they'll never forget that. So these are moments to not only make memories, but I think get back to the basics,
Sure.
of goodness and human kindness. But we have to do that by healing ourselves. And that's something I also wanted to bring up, Frank. I told you I got certified in trauma-informed therapy, which again, I don't have any intention of becoming a therapist. I just wanted the framework to work through when people came out of this. And what was fascinating to me, and my family is a medical family, and we've all heard the Hippocratic Oath. We know what's the first tenet of the Hippocratic Oath, Frank?
Above all, do no harm.
Right. Do no harm. Do you know what the second one is?
No. What is it?
Doctor, heal thyself.
Yeah.
Heal thyself. So I think that's really important too.
I do
If
too.
you're a caregiver, and you're trying to deal with trauma in your life and you're trying to heal the people around you, you need to make sure that you're healed yourself and your autonomic nervous system is steady. Because if it's not, and you're living in that panic, fear mindset, you're killing your immune system. You're going to be no good to anybody else until you scaffold yourself up and fill your own cup. So
Healthcare is so important.
yeah. So you
Yeah.
asked me what I've done.
Mhm.
And what I've done is really kicked up my self care a notch. And what that looks like is I've been a lot easier on myself about exercising, because I'm a workout fanatic. Have not been as consistent about that as I have in the past, but I've been sleeping a lot.
Mhm.
I take my time in the shower, like I make it a shower experience. I'm meditating more. I have a psychiatrist. I think everybody in a role like mine needs to have somebody that they can talk to.
Mhm.
Um, Prior to this, I was only meeting with him once a month. Now I'm talking to him by phone every other week.
Yeah, I can.
I think it's time to really amp up the self-care, really amp it up, and turn off the news. Turn off the news. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
drown
no
out the
reason.
negativity if you can. There's a lot of
Right,
negativity, and let's face it, people who do things online know that fear and stories about fear attract human. It's level two of Maslow. They all want to be safe and they want to tune into anything that might hurt them, which is why water coolers always had all the rumors around them, right?
right,
Because people want to tune into and know everything that might harm them.
right.
And their antenna is up. Actually, humans are the strongest sensor on the planet. People always want to put in technology and talk about all these different sensors. Humans are an incredible sensing machine, incredible.
Oh
They
yeah,
sense everything, not
yeah.
just the lack of social connection, but they sense, all the unsaid words driven by different expressions and things. Humans read it. They have a sixth sense, and they go, "Oh, I don't feel right about this." That's their sixth sense. They picked up all this stuff in the subconscious that the conscious mind isn't even aware of,
Hmm.
and it gives them discomfort. They're the most powerful sensor. And this is what, companies have to be aware of. And, people do need self-care.
Yep.
If you sense at all that you're, starting to feel a little down, exercise, positive music, get online, socialize,
Hmm.
for me, I love a glass of wine at the end of the day. I
You
do.
know,
I find it very relaxing.
yeah.
It's great. That's one of my, things I do for myself. And I work out all the time. Try to get fresh air. I like helping people. I get a boost out of that.
Well,
So,
and another thing that I'll say, and people joke about this, but if you're in a loving relationship, have sex with your partner.
yeah.
Have sex with your partner. It's one of the great life's greatest joys. That's another way of creating connection. I mean, and if you're in the house and you're quarantined,
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? Watch another episode of Tiger King, which again, I'm
Well,
a fan of that show, but
we do know we're creating a baby boom during this,
oh
right?
yeah, of course,
We know that's going to happen.
of
So I think
course,
a lot of people are already doing that, right? In nine
right,
months, we'll see the
right,
hospitals full, and it won't be because of COVID, or will,
right.
yeah, well, it will be, but indirectly, right?
Right. And we also know, I have several friends in my circles that do IVF, or
Yeah.
those 1 in 9 couples that have hard time conceiving. So, I want to make sure I acknowledge that, and I'm sensitive to that. But
Hey, by the
again,
way, stress is
right,
one of the things that makes it difficult for people to conceive. The
right.
human body, which is a sensor, says, hey, wow, there's a lot of stress and strife around. This is a dangerous time for someone to be pregnant. It makes them more vulnerable. So the body waits for a better time. So if they can find a way to relax during this time,
Yep.
and take it as a gift that they're not under that constant pressure and stress of commuting, going into work, trying to manage work and life, this could be a good time for
Yeah.
them to maybe be able to conceive if they haven't been able to.
Yeah, and that's something else that just popped in my mind. I have a lot of colleagues, and I don't know if you're seeing this or experiencing this too, Frank, is that many parents have been saying to me, I have to homeschool my kid. I can't do this. Like it's like I have a third job, and I don't understand 12th, sixth grade math, or one of my friends said,
We
"Oh,
learn
right, right." But what I've heard from my teacher friends, and there are a lot of them, is first of all, let's take comfort in the fact that 91% of the world's children are out of school.
Mhm.
91%. So
Incredible.
if your biggest fear is that your kid's going to fall behind, don't worry about that. They're all in the same space, okay? And the other thing is that all my teacher colleagues and friends said to me was that, we can get them to learn math and English and history. What we can't do is spend our time helping them recover from an emotional trauma. So
Yeah.
listen, if you're not getting your kids schooled at Harvard grade, like, third grade, whatever, don't worry about that. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay. Like, you
It'll
don't
work
need to
out.
stress about that. So,
By
and
the
I,
way, the Khan Academy, I mean, for parents who are home, incredible lessons
oh, yeah.
on all these math subjects and
Yeah.
other things. So the great resources online.
Oh, yeah. So there's one called Teachers Pay Teachers, which I
Mhm.
keep hearing about. And the other one is called Gourmet Bakes on the Bon Appetit YouTube channel.
Yeah,
My one of my best friends who happens to teach Latin here in Lower Marion told me, she's like, Kelly, that's great for math and science. I mean, and wouldn't that be great if you set your two kids to making something from Gourmet Bakes while you did your work? You
yeah,
know, you can still be in their eye line and watch them, but if they figure it out and they bake something, then everybody can enjoy it and they feel accomplished. You
yeah.
know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a blackboard or, you know, I don't know, cosine of whatever. Like, I didn't really pay attention much in geometry. God forgive me. But, you know, everybody's just doing their best. And I think even if holding the middle is all
Mhm.
you can do right now, be gentle with yourself.
Yeah,
That's an accomplishment in itself. This is a time none of us have ever experienced before in our lifetimes. None, nobody.
this is unique.
So
Yeah, the world shutting down like this is certainly a first.
yeah.
I don't think it's ever happened in history.
Well,
Um, why don't we close on a note? You had mentioned to me earlier, GM, EMDR.
EMDR, yeah. So you know, I'm a two-time survivor of sexual assault. It happened when I was 19 in 1995. I didn't. This is why PTSD is so close to my heart. I didn't know I had it until my mother said something to me.
Mhm.
And fortunately, she found a great doctor to help me out who diagnosed it right away. Now, I will tell you, I still didn't close the book on it until I found a wonderful woman named Dr. Lucille Stubbs in Virginia Beach. And she introduced me to EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And basically, what it does is it takes you back into the trauma in a safe way and helps you basically rewrite and heal the wound. And I will tell you that I had been in talk therapy on and off for 14 years. I found Dr. Lucille Stubbs and she took me through it and we healed it in 3 months. So I would say be open to those tools. This is
Mhm.
something that the military has used for their veterans and their active duty that's really sped healing. And I just think that if you're feeling down, reach out to somebody like me, reach out to a therapist, reach out to a mental health professional. There are a lot of us out there that are serving the collective consciousness, and it's our honor to do so. And frankly, this is the time that we were called to do this work. This
Mhm.
is the time for it. So, you
Yep.
know, I say that with a lot of love and a lot of compassion.
Yeah. I mean, this is a time when people need to support one another as much
Yeah,
as possible.
right.
And well, on that note, I think this is a very, very, very interesting interview. I know you offer a lot of online, webinars and things. Do you want to share where they can find information?
Yeah, so you can go to kellymeerbott.com and there's a drop down for a webinar I'm doing this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Ah, by
It's
the time this gets published, Friday will be gone.
That's okay. I'll have some
So,
record. If
yeah,
anybody wants a recording, that's fine.
yeah,
It's called
perfect.
Rest, Restore, Rejuvenate, Reset, and it's all about how to protect your mental health. So if anybody sees this, didn't get to do the webinar, let me know. I'll send you a recording of it.
Feel free to tune in. I went to one, it was excellent. And listen, I so much appreciate you coming on. Absolutely fantastic. So I wish you all the best and certainly love to have you back on again down the road.
I would love that. And Frank, thank you for being you and the team at People Productive. Everything you're putting together is such a huge value to us and to the planet. And I'm grateful that
Thank
you
you.
put me on.
Yes, all the best. Take care. Thank you so much.